By 2026, 65% of enterprises will rely on service delivery partners to manage complex cloud-native workloads. This is up from 45% in 2023. Welcome, and my name is Paul Nashawaty. I'm the practice lead for the AppDev practice at theCUBE Research, and I'm joined by Nicholas today. Nicholas, how you doing?
Hi, great. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, happy to do so. Yeah, I'm Nicholas. I'm the CEO at Adfinis. We're a system integrator, started in Switzerland actually, with a pure focus on open source technology. And that was quite a new thing back then. It was in the late 90s when we started. So 25 years already. And we partner with a lot of the industry vendors that you know, like Red Hat and SUSE, HashiCorp, GitLab, all those players, to actually help customers to implement technologies and drive the app modernization, drive the cloud native adoption, drive the cloud migration, all these kind of things. And as our part is really like integrating the software and then also running it in a 24/7 manner. We see a lot of customers, we see a lot of projects, like a lot of them every now and then, like every day. And we started in Switzerland, but now are also acting globally, and started in the Netherlands to work there, also in Australia, in the APAC region, and Germany, and also in the Middle East, now in Egypt. So yeah, we see a lot of diverse customers, a lot of diverse questions and requirements, and it's quite an interesting field to be in, I actually believe. Yeah.
Oh, it sure is, Nicholas. And and it seems like forever ago that we were having breakfast together at SUSECon.
Yes.
And yeah, that was awesome. But like when we were talking about global open source service providers kind of working together with organizations to navigate those complex IT, transformation projects, that was really interesting to me because, when we were talking at that event and we see the trends that are happening, what I thought would be great for us to have a conversation around how application monetization is really reshaping a lot of the infrastructure strategies. But in particular, I'm thinking about how open source is rising as roles. And, when we look at the impacts for service delivery partners like yourself, seeing those impacts across the industries, it really helps address things like complexity and skill gap issues. And those are the things we hear over and over and over again from CIOs and from modernization strategies. But when we look at these modernization strategies, I'd like to start with talking about the role of application monetization and open source strategy. So, Nicholas, let's start with the big picture. Application monetization is now a board level topic, right? I'm at an event this week, and I'm having the same exact conversation with the board of another company, and we're talking about how it influences the role of open source and what it plays for enterprise strategies. What are your thoughts around this, and what are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, so I mean, open source is really like in the epicenter now of a lot of initiatives. Like the organizations, they realized, hey, we need the young talents in the market, and they usually start with open source, like in the university or whatever, and they bring that knowledge already. That's one aspect. So they are hunting the talents, and the talents are usually now working with open source. That's what we see. But of course, then there is a lot of complexity, as you said, and you need not only talents to tackle this, but you also need great technology. You need vendor backing. You will not just trust the community to run your enterprise workloads, right? So you need a player like Red Hat or SUSE that covers you, that gives you this enterprise support that you need if you want to run mission critical systems. And now what we see is really like on the board level, they start to figure out, okay, what are the ways to get the talents? What are the right ways to bring like the big players in? And where is like, how do we gap between the requirements that we have and the technology that we want to use? How do we implement that? And then we see a lot of demand for people like us. And they would like to have like a lot of Adfinis and a lot of like these integrators. But you know how it is, you cannot be everywhere. So there is a high demand, and we now, of course, see a lot of like potential also to increase our impact with tools like AI to improve like the cycles, to like get things rolled out faster, to like, yeah, just shorten the cycle to implement all these things. And it's a huge topic, it's a huge demand, and the open source story, that is really like, everybody understands it. We need the platforms, we need the open source ecosystem also if we want to develop the software. Then it's not just like for the platform itself, we also need all these components from the ecosystem, from the open source ecosystem, to deliver the tools that like the enterprise or the business then needs. So it's the platform, it's the software that you want to build, that you bring to the customer. It's everything is open source, but there are a lot of also issues then around liability, and yeah, we need a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills now in this field to tackle that.
No, without a doubt, Nicholas. I mean, modernization is really not just about replatforming legacy applications. It's really is about that agility, scalability, and developer velocity, right?
Yeah.
And especially when we're looking at new initiatives that are happening, right? With the CRA, the Compliance Regulation Act in Europe.
Yeah.
It's coming out, by December 2027, all applications have to be compliant, right? Otherwise, there's fines. And open source brings composability with the community involved in innovation as well. And that's really a big part. But you also touched on a couple of key areas like freedom from vendor lock-in, right? And that makes it essential for modern application architectures like microservices and containerization. So when we look at these initiatives that are happening, and we look at these trends, where does Adfinis kind of focus most of its value? Like, where does it like get? I know you were talking about you can't be everywhere to everybody, but the thing is, demand out there is incredibly high, and CIOs are getting these mandatory tasks of 12 to 18 months to modernize, or they're being replaced, right? So where do you focus?
Yeah, I think first, well, what usually is really the start is, I mean, of course, you have to look into the architecture of the software. How can we really like make a classic application cloud native? How can we make microservices out of it? Like, that's a really like architectural decisions that you need to make. You need to rewrite code there, but that's like one. I would say that's consulting, right? But then as soon as okay, we can actually decompose the legacy applications, then the first questions are, okay, how do we get many VMs that powered these applications to closer to, let's say, container environments? And then usually what we do is like really doing this lift and shift of VMs to container platforms. Like, that usually brings a lot of, I would say, benefit. So bringing the VMs to, let's say, a platform that uses Qubit or whatever, like running the VMs in the same environment as the containers, and then do the whole modernization there already. Like, that is usually bringing the engineers to the platform, bringing them closer to the tools there, to this infrastructure as code, and then also tell them how to use pipelines. Like, what is infrastructure as code? How do you use the pipelines to do all these steps to modernize the code, to test the code, to run the compliance tests, to do the security vulnerability scanning, like bringing these pipelines into the game and then deploy it. Like, that is really like where we put the focus on. So first, check how do we decompose, then bring the VMs closer to the containers, then bring the pipelines, do all these steps in an automated manner to really shrink the cycles from changing code to running it in production. And then like you will get there that you have microservices, and then you can get rid of the VMs at some point. That's where we put the focus on. And I think, there is a lot in there that we could touch on, but that's, I would say, the general big picture that we have.
And you're not joking. There's a lot there to touch on, right? So when we look at, organizations, they want to use open source for production, great, but they don't want to go at it alone, right? They want to make sure that they have enterprise level support. In fact, we see in our research that 68% of organizations want to work with vendors that use open source projects and sponsor open source projects, but offer enterprise level support for those open source initiatives. But this means more than just code, right? It means that there's governance, lifecycle management, security, building DevSecOps culture around the ecosystem, and customers want flexibility, right? They also want to have this enterprise level reliability, and that's where I think working with a service delivery partner really amplifies this and helps this, right? Because the devils are in the details, right? But I think maybe a question I'd like to ask you, with those organizations that are looking at modernization, right? and they're looking at open source. Are there common myths around open source that kind of still linger around?
Open source is gratis or is free. That's one thing. And I mean, we always have to address this. You want enterprise grade support, and you want to like have these companies in the game for a long time. So you need to support their business model. So what we try to avoid is really like being the free rider that just takes code and just bring it to the customer without adding benefit and really like supporting the ecosystem, the community there. That's one. If it's not free, and you should really like support the business models of the open source players, otherwise they will also vanish at some point. So that is one myth that I think is really important. Then another myth that I tend to say we see a lot is open source is complex. Of course, if you start from a green field and looking at, for example, the landscape of the compute CNCF landscape, then you see, well, it's a big picture. How do I get there? And that's exactly where the players like Red Hat or SUSE or Canonical come in and really bring the simplicity, bring the simplification to the game, because they bring a turnkey solution, right? So open source is not complex, in my opinion. Of course, you have a steep learning curve at the beginning, but then as soon as you're in there, you can do so much more with open source in so easy ways, with auditable code, with also with configurations like infrastructure as code, where you actually can see what is happening there. So I think it's not that complex compared to any other IT. So these are two myths that I see a lot. Of course, we could also say people still think, well, open source is not secure or whatever. You can look into the code, you could find vulnerabilities, then just use this knowledge to attack a platform. But yeah, I mean, that's also a good argument to say, well, it is secure because of that, because a lot of eyes can look at the code. So that's obvious. It's not more insecure than any other software. I would say even on the contrary, it's more secure. So these are a couple of myths that we see all over again, and we also have to educate, as you said, CIOs, and tell them, no, that's not true. Trust us, it's a great story, a lot of good players in there, and you can feel safe. And yeah, that's what I would say.
I agree with every point you just made. It's just you have to learn a new tech stack whenever you're doing anything. Yeah. So whether it's open source or proprietary, you still have to learn it, right? You have to figure it out. And I love the unified view that you're talking about with the vendors that offer that kind of holistic view across what their tech stack that they're looking at. Let's shift the conversation a little bit. Let's talk about business outcomes, because I think business outcomes is a big part of working with service delivery partners, right? So when we talk about business outcomes, application modernization, one of the biggest pain points that a lot of organizations run into is time to market, right? Get their product, to get their initiative to market fast, right? So with containerization of workloads, a CI/CD pipeline, and GitOps, companies can really help ship faster with more reliability, but they also have to know how to use those tech stacks, right? And use those things with the environment. So, we've seen clients with reducing waste cycles, reducing release cycles, right? And trying to get, those release cycles down, right? And what we find in our research is organizations, 24% of respondents in a recent survey indicated that they want to release code on an hourly basis, yet only 8% are able to do so. So daily releases of code or hourly releases of code is really what a lot of organizations are doing. So I guess what I'll ask you is, are you seeing these types of improvements working with your clients, and do you see operational efficiencies?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that you need in order to be able to release often is confidence. If you're confident that your code is going to work, then then it's easy to just push a button and deploy it, right? And this confidence that you will get out of the CI/CD pipelines. If you have a good test coverage, if you know, okay, we check for vulnerabilities, all these kind of things that you usually do, and okay, security scans are not just something that you add at the end, but it's really this shift left thing that you really put security in the whole process. Then you also know, okay, we check for the vulnerabilities, the typical ones, and the code is safe. If you build that confidence, that trust in your processes, supported by the right tools, then it is really easy for the whole team to know, okay, I can really do a quick change and I can get it out, and we can do the A/B testing with different like platforms where maybe just a small group will be using the new feature, etc. These kind of things, they bring a lot of efficiency, and this is really due to the confidence that you need and that you can build with the CI/CD pipelines, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I also feel that what you bring to the table is when you modernize, you're empowering those teams to be more successful, right? So these
Exactly.
developers can do more, they can iterate faster, and they can focus on innovation. And that's obviously
Yeah.
what developers want to do. But more important, I think that businesses can respond to market shifts, right? And
Yeah.
it's a ripple effect, right? Modern platforms become innovation engines, right? When you start
Yeah.
looking at how this all works. I know we're getting close to the end of our session, but I want to ask you a couple of other things about what, when we're looking ahead, right? And we're thinking about, the next wave in modernization. What does it look like for you with AI coming in and platform engineering are big focuses? What are your thoughts here?
Yeah. So I think in terms of modernization and trends in general, what we see is there are topics that we saw in the past that are coming again. Of course, AI is a different beast, but let's focus on a couple of things that we see coming again. So, for example, what I see recently is that we're again talking about total cost of ownership. Like in the last years, we sold our services through what is the value that we bring. And now there are some uncertainties in the market. We had a lot of inflation and like the budgets are a bit tighter. And suddenly we see, oh, TCO discussions again. Like that really surprised me. And that also brings things like organizations who want to get away from VMware, also because of the Broadcom story. So we see again that we have a shift of platforms of like, I would say, classic platforms that I thought will be around for a long time that now started to become a topic for modernization again. Suddenly, organization want to get their VMs migrated again, like a topic that we didn't see for many years. And that is interesting. I think from a modernization point of view, that also brings the possibility to, as I said, bring the VMs closer to the container platforms again, which is interesting. And of course, next to that is the whole AI topic, where we see really a lot of teams now starting to figure out, okay, how can I run and implement AI workloads? How do I run a language model on a server? How can I use the APIs to do things there? How can I build a rack? Like this is all modernization. You need the newest technology and you need a lot of new expertise. You need to build up knowledge. And of course, this also brings a lot of modernization because you really need modern stacks there. And these are just a couple of things. And I'm surprised to see, yeah, it's not only about containers and CI/CD again. It's also we also see a legacy topic, if you want, the classic topics again, and that's surprising.
Yeah, I definitely think it is very surprising. You touched on something that was interesting when you're talking about VMware and migrations away from VMware. Yeah, I mean, I remember when VMware was really new, right? It was a thing that
Yeah.
people were kind of
Yeah.
getting into. So it is kind
Yeah.
of interesting that we're looking at the next wave here, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's really going
Yeah.
to be a fast acceleration,
Yeah.
and it's going to really take off. So Nicholas, I do appreciate you joining. Closing thoughts here. Where can the audience learn more about what we're talking about? We're working with service delivery partners.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see that a lot of our customers only learn at conferences about us, because usually customers go to the vendors first. And I think it would be interesting also, like if the CIOs start to figure out, okay, who are the boutique partners that really bring the technology in your environment. Like it's usually not the vendor, these are the companies like us, and you'll find a lot about us and all the other system integrators on, I would say, the website, but also on our YouTube channels. And it is good to also talk to us and not just the vendors, because we usually know how to bring the technology to your environment and where the pitfalls are, and we can really talk about our battles that we have with technology. So yeah, just reach out, talk to us, talk to other system integrators. I think it's always good to have their opinions in the board as well.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. I mean, it really is helpful to kind of share that because the audience definitely, would appreciate the help and understand how to get to where they, reach their objectives. I want to thank you for joining me today. This has really been great. I want to thank the audience for tuning in. We do appreciate you being part of our AppDevANGLE community, but this wraps up this episode. And we'll be back next Wednesday with another conversation diving into the tools, trends, and talents shaping the future of application development. Whether you're deploying at the edge, building AI, or modernizing your cloud stack, we've got you covered. So be sure to follow us on social. If you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to connect, you can always reach me at pauln@siliconangle.com. Until next time, stay curious and stay building. Thank you.